Carefree cooks everywhere. We're gathered again together. So good to see you with us. I'm here at Mom's house again in North Carolina, and really good to be together. We are going to have a lot of fun today. There's did you see, what was it, Sunday, 2 days ago, when I broke down that entire beef tenderloin? Wasn't that really cool? I love being able to bring those things to you. You know, one of the amazing things that I forgot to mention, and if you haven't seen that, either scroll down on this Facebook page or look at Pinterest or Instagram and find that video where I broke down a whole beef tenderloin live. One of the things that I neglected to mention, those steaks were so incredibly moist, they were so incredibly tender, they were fantastic, because one of the great benefits is when you break your steak down from an entire loin, it hasn't been sitting in the styrofoam tray for days and like evaporating. It was just such a better item for sure. Diane is here from Northern Ontario. Hi, Diane. Bill is here. Wei King is here. Paul is here. Welcome, Paul. Donald Frederick, good to see you again, Donald. Margaret is with us well. Alan is here. Howdy, Chef. Brenda, all our friends. Guy is here. Darren is here. Margaret, we said, and Marie. That's so good. We're coming together again. So today, I want to talk about how to once and for all put a stake in the heart of this ghoulish food abuse that goes on this time of year. It's tragic what we do to food, and we don't allow it any other time of year. And that's what we need to get to today. I'm going to show you how to change all of that. But look, if you're a carefree cook, if you're with us today, if you're with us Tuesday Talk Live every Tuesday, you're going to know what I'm talking about. But you know, if you're not a carefree cook yet, if you need to start your own path to carefree cooking, well, I've got the guidebook for you. It's my 5 forks to carefree cooking. And if you go to webcookingclasses.com, you can get the guide there and see what I'm talking about, because in your journey to be truly free in your cooking, you're going to have to make some decisions, and I'll help you through all the forks in the road, because then you're a carefree cook and you love to create your own recipes. You bring your family and your friends together. You learn every time you cook. You define your own cooking style. You practice pro methods, and you love your cooking. That's what us carefree cooks are. That's what we're about. And there are thousands of them now. We're all over the place. We're all over the world. I so love your emails. I so love your comments. I love your successes when you say, you know, I've gotten so much in this past week of the first time I did this or that, or the very first time I did this or that. And it's just amazing to see people have these breakthroughs of, I was never able to make a soup before. Or last week, 2 weeks ago, we did etouffee live. I have been flooded, smothered, if you will, with etouffee recipes, and people saying this is so amazing, and I got a method out of it, and so now I know how to change it around. But look, one of the things we have to do to be a carefree cook is to love food, is to have a good, healthy respect of food. I don't think you can be a carefree cook and just microwave burritos day in and day out, right? Go to the microwave section and microwave your burrito. There's something about being involved with the food. There's something about smelling it, the onions in the pan, the feel of the knife, the creation, the sauce, that like it's all so exciting to me. And this is why I don't like gadgets. This is why I don't like the sous vide and the Instapot, because to me, they take all the love out of cooking. But the abuse of food that goes on this time of year is a national tragedy. And I'm surprised there isn't a lobby against pumpkin abuse this time of year. This time of year, we take food and put it out as a porch ornament. Should there be another time of year where we all put a chicken out on our front steps? You would think that was obscene and insane. How about in mid-August, you know, we all put a side of beef out on our front porches? It's ridiculous that we put these wonderful items, these edible items, out as a porch ornament, and we just let them rot. I want to make sure that we get away from this horrible food abuse, because Halloween coming up next week, why is it that for Halloween cooking we only have a few categories of cooking for this time of year? And these are the categories for this time of year. Category 1 is brains, right? Anything that you can make that looks like a brain. If you can stab a knife into it, that's even better. If you can have a little bit of disgusting blood coming out of it, brains is the first food category. So get out your Jellos, get out your aspics, get out your thickened milk and so on, and go ahead and make little brain appetizers with a spider crawling on top. Because I've talked about this many times before. People eat with their eyes. People anticipate the smells. That's why you garnish. You always garnish with something that's in the dish. You don't try and fool people. This time of year, it's all about the most disgusting presentation that you can make. Are you excited to eat a brain biscuit? I know that I'm not. The second is eyeballs. Yeah, man. Hey, rock on. The second food category is eyeballs. Why is this the time of year to make everything look like an eyeball? And no matter how delicious this item may or may not be, the anticipation of it, the idea that I'm going to put this in my mouth, this eyeball, why do we sacrifice this anticipation? It's food abuse. Why are the categories of foods brains, eyeballs? You can see there's a lot of eyeballs around the internet, more eyeballs. This one with toothpicks in them, oh, that hurts as well. Eyeballs in a shot glass. There's eyeballs everywhere, and then there's fingers. The third category of food for Halloween is fingers. Dismembered hot dog fingers, lady fingers with almonds as nails on them, dismembered hands out of Pop-Tarts, and more fingers on a platter. I don't know what that is, but I don't want to eat it. How about your favorite fingers on a plate with a little bit of red for blood? Oh, and then the other food category is hearts. Let's make things out of body parts. You've got heart jello. You've got heart molded. Oh, we've got more hearts. Doesn't that look delicious? Hearts casserole. Oh, it is wonderful. This food is so good. Of course, there's the meatloaf head. That's one of the most delicious looking meatloafs I've ever seen, don't you think? Horrible presentation, right? What about teeth in a muffin, or even worse, apple slices with all kinds of teeth? Or how about a bag of zombie boogers? It's enough to make a pumpkin vomit. It's horrible. Why are we abusing food this time of year? Why does your buffet have to look horrible when there are so many wonderful flavors of fall? Instead of putting appearance above flavor in your entertaining this year, in your cooking, instead of making something look horrible and anticipate that it's going to taste horrible, why don't you really apply your carefree cooking and put the quality of the ingredients above? Here we break down whole tenderloins. Here we clean whole chickens. Here we find the best olive oils, because that adds to so much fun of the creation and enjoyment of the end result. So this is the time of year where there's a cornucopia of food. You know this thing? This is where the whole cornucopia idea comes from. Look at the stuff in here. You don't see a fish. You don't see clams. You don't see a side of beef. You see all the fruits and vegetables of fall. This is one of the most wonderful times of year for food, and yet everybody thinks that you should put it on your porch, or you should dry it, or you should carve it into a brain, an eyeball, a finger, a heart, a meatloaf head, or put some teeth in a cupcake. This is food abuse. Let me talk to you about what good food is this time of year. We have such an array of squash available this time of year, and I know you're afraid of them. I know you're afraid of the squash, because they have this hard outer shell, right? And they're irregularly shaped, and then they're really, really difficult, and the flesh is really tough. And you don't even know what to do with them. You know, you're just not sure. Just boil it and make a soup out of it. Well, there's so much that you can do with these fall squashes, and it really creates a better sense of Halloween and a better sense of fall cooking than turning something into a bleeding brain. That's disgusting. So how about using some of the pumpkins in a different way? Instead of leaving it on your porch to rot, how about something like pumpkin ravioli? This is one of my favorite dishes of fall. I make my own pasta dough. We talk about how to do this in web cooking classes in week 22 and 23. I think we do advanced pastas. But pumpkin ravioli with a brown butter walnut sauce. I'll say it again. Pumpkin ravioli with a brown butter walnut sauce. One of my favorite things to make in the fall, because you can't buy this. Okay, I know of nowhere you can go to the store and buy pumpkin ravioli. It's something that you have to make, and it's something that comes around as a heritage item for me every fall. I don't have to shape the ravioli into a finger or a brain to make it fit within fall flavors. The pumpkin, the walnuts, the browned butter, this says Halloween to me without scaring my diners. Butternut squash, you see these all the time in the store. If you're not sure what to do with it, it's really quite simple. You can peel it like with a potato peeler, or you can cut them in half, scoop out all those seeds, and then just roast them. And that's really the easiest way to do it on this tough squash. I cut them in half, and I brush them with butter, put them in the oven under dry convective heat, and they get very soft. So at some point, you can scoop all that flesh out, and one of my favorite things to do is a butternut squash soup. So easy to do, and we cover pureed soups in web cooking classes. We cover every soup known to mankind in web cooking classes, but so simple to roast your butternut squash, put it in your Cuisinart or your blender, add a little cream to it or flavorful liquid, vegetable broth or chicken broth or something like that, and generally garnished with like toasted pumpkin seeds. This is a much better use of a gourd, of a squash this time of year than letting it rot on your porch. When the leaves start to fall, one of the other flavors that comes to mind immediately to me as a fall flavor that I really don't mess with in the summer is maple. Getting yourself a good maple syrup, a pure maple syrup, and I know I have so many friends up north of me in Canada that are going to tell you how great real maple syrup is. Please don't buy high fructose corn syrup with an old ant on the front of it. You know, that's not really syrup. So I know my Canadian friends are going to give me tons of hearts for this one. Real syrup, real maple syrup has the flavor of fall to me, and you can put this in so many other things. Salmon, it goes so well with salmon. A maple glazed salmon that you could sear in a pan, in a cast iron pan in this instance, so you get that nice caramely crust on it, and then finish it in the oven so it cooks all the way through. So a nice combination cooking method, this maple marinade. A week ago Sunday, remember I did the maple mustard pork, and I used pure maple syrup. Mine was from Maine. I'm sorry, wrong side of the border for my Canadian friends. My pure maple syrup was from Maine, given to me by a friend, but I marinated the pork in it. Oh my goodness, the flavor of it, plus the higher sugar content will give you a much more caramely crust when you have a higher sugar marinade. So salmon and maple go so well together for me for the fall. Brussels sprouts. Maple, walnut, Brussels sprouts. 3 words for you. And this says much more about fall and Halloween to me than a brain or a meatloaf head. Brussels sprouts, I generally cut them in half to give them more surface area. Steam them first because they're tough little shoes. You know, they're tough little cabbage heads. I steam them first and chill them. Then I'll go ahead and saute them in whatever you want, olive oil or coconut oil or whatever's within your dietary or food preferences. And then they get maple syrup and toasted walnuts, toasted pine nuts, toasted pumpkin nuts, anything of that regard. Another thing that really says fall to me, putting maple and maple and Brussels sprouts together, and then you've got mushrooms. Mushroom is way more fall than candy corn is. Mushroom is way more fall than zombie boogers ever will be. And anytime you can make a wonderful mushroom sauce to add to your pork, mushroom sauce to add to vegetables, or how about a mushroom soup? You start putting mushroom soups together in the fall, and it could be a thin soup with like a mushroom stock. A lot of times when I make my mushroom soup, I will take the stems and the caps. The caps are going to get pureed for the soup. The stems I'll simmer in liquid with my onion ends and other things like that and make a mushroom stock to then make the mushroom soup out of. So I'm double mushrooming it in that way, or make a thick mushroom soup. You can make a roux, butter and flour, use the mushroom stock to make a velouté, or use milk and mount it with cream. You got a creamy mushroom soup. I mean, the flavors of fall say so much more than any of those. And then, of course, they're apples. You know, apples don't grow on trees. Well, a minute. Yeah, they do. Apples are falling everywhere in the fall. But don't just think about apple pie. That's all anybody thinks about. Apple pie, apple bread. How about putting apple with savory items? How about shredded apple in your pork sliders? Or let's go back one. Let's do the maple pork sliders, shredded pork, and then add sliced or shredded or sauteed or poached apples to it. Apple pork sliders say so much more about Halloween and fall. How about an apple slaw? Take your normal coleslaw recipe, whatever you do, or your salad, run your apples through a mandolin, or use your knife skills to do a really nice batonette of apple and add that to your salads as well. All of these are flavors of fall that you can add to your cooking. You don't have to make it look disgusting, right? You don't have to put things together. You can put apples and chicken together. Apples, chicken, Brussels sprouts, some mustard, some maple, all of this says such a fantastic flavor of fall. You could take apples and you can stuff the pork loin with it. And we show you, there's a lesson in web cooking classes on tying things, on barding things and tying them. You can stuff it with apples and cinnamon as well. It makes just for such a nice presentation. There are just so many things that you can do that say so much more about fall. Your cooking doesn't have to be a graveyard. It doesn't have to be death and body parts and zombie boogers. It doesn't have to be zombie brain dead to scare people at the holiday. You can use good food. You can use the freshest ingredients. Remind people of the flavors of fall so that they don't feel like they're eating an eyeball and they're walking through a graveyard of food, because let's bring some elegance back to this. This is an elegant table setting for the holidays. Why don't we take it away from the children aspect, right, of fingers and, looks like my microphone is going crazy. The children aspect of fingers and brains, and let's make an adult aspect out of this. Let's start to turn Halloween into a holiday where we don't abuse food, where we don't turn it into brains and fingers and zombie boogers, where we use the flavors of fall in an elegant style and we entertain in that way. That way we have a lot more respect for food, and you can set yourself a really nice table and enjoy it that way. Happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you enjoy better food this year without trying to scare your diners. Why don't you amaze your diners in another way? It doesn't have to be a haunted house. So happy Halloween, everyone. Hey, what's going on in the Carefree Cooks community this year? I'll tell you what, let's see who's talking to me first. I'm sorry, I'm looking for, where am I? Facebook, there we go. Tough, because I can't look at the comments on my computer because then it messes up the broadcast. I'm sending it out and trying to get it together. I'm getting a lot of hearts. Thank you so much. I'm trying to get, there we go, where the comments, stop it, phone, stop it, Facebook. All right, comments, scrolling. Oh, a lot of comments, swipe right. Hi, Susan, you're with you. Diane loves squash, roasted and stuffed. Heck yeah, Diane. Quien does soups with butternut, best way to do it. Vermont maple syrup, Kerry is reminding us. All that whole section up there. I know my Canadian friends would kill me if I didn't mention Canadian maple syrup, right? Margaret's never made any squash before because she didn't know what to do with them. I'll give you another idea, Margaret, and everybody else. I do a squash au gratin. You know the acorn squash, the kind of green squat ones, they're really tough. Any of these squashes you can cut into cubes and bake them with a white sauce. I love that. I either do a bechamel sauce and then season it and bake the cube squash, or I'll make a cheese sauce and then put it in casserole and bake it. So if you've never done that before, you can take any of these squashes and make an au gratin. I really love that. I'm reminding Wilda to go out and make some butternut squash soup. I'm glad to have reminded you on that. Everybody loves the soup. Wilda loves the idea of pumpkin ravioli, or I'll tell you what, you can swap the two. I've done butternut squash ravioli and roasted pumpkin soup. You can do both of them. Looking for questions. Hi, Joan. Joan is with us. Don is with us. That's good. Deborah is with us. So cool. Yeah, Thomas is saying fun for the kids. These are easy cooking methods to like cut up and puree things or chop up a pumpkin. You know, if you want to abuse the pumpkin, go at it with a knife and then cook it, and then you get a good result at least. But let's stop all this food abuse that's going on here. Inside our Carefree Cooks community this week, there's a lot going on. We have well over 6,600 Carefree Cooks with us now, growing every day. But it seems the theme this week has been baking. Everybody is getting ready for the fall baking. Everybody's getting ready for the holidays and all their holiday baking. One of the best news was our friend Heber Soto. He says that his banana tree is finally giving off new bananas 1 year after Maria, after the big storm. And the very first thing he did was made a whole bunch of little banana loaves. Really, really nice. That's cool. What else is going on here? Christopher's getting really good with his bread. Christopher's got the 10 steps in the yeast dough method down, having to do with mixing, fermenting, punching, proofing, forming, portioning, panning, baking, tasting, digesting. I don't think digesting is one of them, but anyway, Christopher's got it down really well now. He's making his own beautiful white bread. Just imagine the kind of French toast you can do with your own white bread. Just imagine how much better your grilled cheese sandwiches are with your own white bread. But when you know basic cooking methods and you know the yeast dough process, Christopher's making his own cinnamon buns as well. So he knows the method. The buns on the left are the regular yeast dough buns. The buns on the right, he tried a gluten-free version. So now he's experimenting. Now that he knows the method behind making them, he has the ability to reach out and cook for other diets, things like that. Kathy's making some great poppy seed muffins. Man, they look delicious. Look at the crown on that. And this has to do with a muffin mixing method. There are basically 5 total mixing methods in all of baking. One of them is a muffin method. Another one is a creaming method. So depending on whether the difference between the two is whether your fat is melted or whether your fat is whole and you cream it. And this will be the difference, along with your leavener, whether you get that nice crown on top of your muffin or whether you have a flat muffin or a sunken muffin. But what this says to me, Kathy, is that you mixed it really well and you used the right method to cook them, because that's just a beautiful crown on that muffin. Really, really nice. Michael he's going nuts. After all his sourdoughs, after all the bread, the guy is on such a bread baking journey. Now he's really perfecting his whole wheat loaf as well, and I think he found out the hard way a few times that you can't make it out of entirely whole wheat. You get a really dense loaf that you can use to hold your doors open in a drafty day, but Michael's chasing down the perfect whole wheat loaf now that he seems to have perfected everything. There's some cake baking going on. Judith is doing a Kahlua coffee chocolate layer cake. Phew, give me a slice, man, that's good. There's a lot of skills that go into cake baking, creaming method for the cake, and then making your icings, working with sugars, working with egg yolks and egg whites to stiffen it. Really difficult job to do, but obviously very skilled as well. Lynn is doing a banana nut cake with brown sugar frosting. Man, that looks good. More bananas in the cake, brown sugar frosting, nicely done. Nice square cake too. I hate a layer cake with a dome. I love a muffin with a dome. I hate a layer cake with a dome. Flat across. Nice job icing that as well, Lynn. Melody made a baguette. And at first you might go, well, you know, maybe that's not so exciting to a lot of people. But then she explained the reason she made the baguette, and it was for the clam chowder she made. Oh my goodness, this was such delicious looking clam chowder that it instantly was like, oh, that's why you made bread. Perfect. I want to soak up all that chowder with that bread. So my point is, when you can make a baguette, it makes your soup even better. So a lot of baking going on. Look at all this. All of this week in the Carefree Cooks community. Nancy did her first ever popovers. First ever time cooking them, first ever time eating them. She had never had them before, but she's seen other Carefree Cooks in our community making the dish. She got the confidence because she saw everybody else doing it, so she went ahead and tried. Look at those beautiful leavening. That's another thing about baking. You know, if you can start to think about the leavening agent with baking, this will solve a lot of your questions. So in these pictures that I've shown you, the bread is leavened with yeast, which is a living organism. The muffins are leavened with baking soda, baking powder, a chemical leavener. And our popovers here are leavened with steam and egg protein that sets. So it's like a balloon. The steam tries to escape, the egg protein sets, and they're mechanically leavened. So this immediately, when you know the hows behind baking, this answers all your questions as to why it would fail or how you can make it better, because you know the leavening process of it. Great job on first ever popovers, Nancy. Generally, first popovers are like that. Yours look great. Tracy's doing double chocolate muffins. Man, that's good. Chocolate is an acid, don't forget. When you add chocolate or Dutched cocoa, because Dutch has an acid added to it, when you add that to a muffin recipe and you've got a baking soda, baking soda reacts with acid. So you always have to be careful with a chocolate muffin and baking soda that additional addition of acid doesn't over leaven your muffins, but Tracy had no problem with that whatsoever. And the really cool thing of the week, I thought, was Adam's roulade. Adam, this is something that I do almost every Christmas, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this, is the bûche Noël. So when you can make this chocolate genoise cake, it's called genoise, it's a heavy egg ratio cake. We'll talk about it as the holidays get closer. Thin cake that's very pliable and spread. So Alan says, yeah, I went a little crazy in the kitchen yesterday. First he did the bread, okay, he did some bread. Then he followed shrimp etouffee. He was on with me doing shrimp etouffee. Now he's done this spiced pumpkin roll. So he took that genoise cake, flour, allspice, cinnamon, cloves, salt, some pumpkin puree, baking soda, baking powder, eggs, sugar, white and brown sugar. So you mix all these things together, it gets spread out in a sheet pan thin. Then he did a filling of cream cheese, butter, vanilla, again, cloves, allspice, cinnamon. You get the spice team here, right? We don't need oregano and basil in a fall-flavored pumpkin roulade. Again, cloves, vanilla, allspice, cinnamon. He didn't make a finger out of it. He didn't form it into a brain. You know? He has made a tremendous fall dessert, and he's playing with the diner's mind. He's playing with the flavors that remind you of Halloween. Rolls it all up, and lastly, he says exactly what I want to impart to you. It's the flavors of fall. I love the flavors of fall, he says. So really what we want to talk about this week is you don't need to scare people with your food just because it's Halloween. You can still be a carefree cook, and you can still impress people with the flavor of the food, the reminiscence of fall, not the fact that it's shaped into a brain or that it looks like a finger or anything like that. Okay, who else? I'm too funny. Yeah, I get in trouble sometimes for being too funny. Thank you for everyone's kind comments. You know, I just really love what I do, and you people responding to me and telling that you enjoy this and stuff makes it just so much happier for me. Fills my heart. Seriously, really enjoy it. Yes, share this video. People saying, can I share the video? Yes, if you like what we talked about today, if you know someone who all their cooking this time of year is brains and fingers, share the video. for sure, and make sure you like it and send it to the people that you want. I see no more questions. Hey, you know, if you want to know, I get a lot of questions also. How do I know when you're going to go live, Chef Todd? Well, first of all, go to the Chef Todd Moore's Facebook page. If you're not on it watching this right now, make sure you like Chef Todd Moore, because that's when you'll get a lot of the announcements. Or go to webcookingclasses.com/live and you can register for my messenger bot. And that way it's like the bat signal for just a few minutes before we go live. You get a message directly from me saying that it's about to happen. So that's all for this week for Tuesday Talk Live. Thank you everyone for being with me. It's a beautiful day here in North Carolina. Wherever you are, I hope you have a great day. I hope you stop this food abuse this time of year. It's not ornaments. They're not decorations. They're actual food. And if you're a carefree cook and you've got the skills to think about things from a scientific standpoint, to think about the methods behind cooking, then you can certainly apply some strange gourd or squash that you've never seen before to that method of cooking and come out with something great for the fall. So Chef Todd Moore reminding you that there's a method to your cooking success, and we'll see you next Tuesday, if not before.